Hey everybody, welcome back to the Blackheart Paladin. Sorry for my absence there for a while. Had a little injury at work. Actually a big injury at work where took off a good portion of my finger. I won't do a close-up for anybody that might be a little more squeamish, although it is getting just about all healed now. But anyway, so that's where I've been with things, and I know the rest of the Omni Lucid Media crew. Everybody's been doing a lot of stuff here going on for holidays and events and everything else, so we've been a little absent here. So I do apologize for that, but I wanted to go ahead and get back going with these and, keep going with the podcast. So. I did post a picture of some of the books that I had just recently picked up. A bunch of stuff that I was looking forward to reading. In the comments, I talked about specifically the Nikki Sixx's book, The Heroin Diaries. So the one that I showed the picture of, so they just came, he just did the 10th anniversary edition of the book. So I immediately went out and bought it. Has a few extra chapters and stuff in there that weren't in the original book. So I'll show you that. So this is actually the original book. What it looked like looked pretty crazy, as you can see there. Barely looks like him, especially this picture here. It's just it's a lot of the his stage makeup and all that's kind of cracking and peeling off of his face, makes him look like a dead zombie or something like that. The reason why I wanted to talk about this, especially for the Blackheart Paladin posts, is because this was by far easily the most influential book for me when I was dealing with my PTSD in the early stages. I had one of my army buddies had recommended it to me. I read it. The first time I read it, I guess I should say, was while I think I was still deployed. Actually, no, I was back. But my PTSD had just started. I don't think I even realized that that's what it was yet. So it was very early on when I read this. But anyway, so with the PTSD as that was happening, this book became very. It really helped me get through a lot of the worst parts. And this book has nothing to do with PTSD. It's all about him going through his drug addictions and alcohol and just all the addictions and that he was going through. And he talks about it because he kept journals during that time. So he shares the actual journal entries with you, and then he has some quotes and people that were in his life that made comments on the different journal entries and whatnot, as well as himself, obviously. But he's very open about it. All the really bad, gruesome details of it. He talks about even the fact that he actually overdosed twice, died twice. The more famous one was when he was actually taken to the hospital. That's the one that I think everybody knows about, or at least anybody that knows about Nikki Sixx and Motley Crue and all that. But there was actually an earlier one as well. But anyway, I don't want to spoil too much of the book for anybody that might want to go out and check this out. I highly recommend you do. At this point, you might as well get the 10th anniversary edition so you can get the extra content from it as well. But to get into why that was so important, like I said, it doesn't have anything to do with PTSD, but when I read through this book, probably the second time I read back through it, just because I remember reading it when I really wasn't sure what was going on, and just remembering how crazy it was. I guess the level of addiction, and I've never had any issues with addiction, so maybe it's just me not understanding it. Anybody that has, they may read it and be right there along with them, even more so than what I was. The thing about it was, though, that it was me seeing how far he had fallen, and the just the level of everything that had happened to him, how far of rock bottom he really did hit, and the fact that he was able to come back from it. So it really became inspirational to me not so much in the fact that we were dealing with the same thing, but just to see that this person had fallen so low, dealing with dealing with his own demons and going through all of this, and that he was still able to come back out of it. And not only that, he put this book out, really, I mean, really bearing his story out there for anybody to judge him, or really see those deep dark places that most people wouldn't tell you about. That's kind of some of the inspiration that I draw on for when I'm doing these podcasts for talking about my PTSD and that, because he doesn't hold back and he tells you the truth about this stuff. And that's some of the stuff that makes me want to do this, because I've seen what this book did for me, and I know what it's done for, I'm sure thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of people. And, that's something that I like to bring into the podcast for mine. And sorry, I'm still kind of dealing with something here. I don't know, but when I went through that book, I just remember feeling, even when I was at my very lowest lows, when I was suicidal or becoming suicidal, I guess. I was reading this book and I realized that, wow, the fact that he was able to do this and get through this, and not only that, he came back from it. He puts this book out. He went around and he talked about it. He got himself sober. He became almost like a poster child for recovery, and the things that he was able to do, and really drawing it as a strength and not as a weakness. All of that was very inspiring to me. If you don't know about Nikki Sixx, or maybe you've just heard his name, you should really check out the things that he has done. I mean, the guy, so he's the bassist of Motley Crue, who is my favorite band. He's also a professional photographer. He hosts the Sixth Sense radio show, which is actually the shirt that I'm wearing. Which I think that's actually just now ending. It's been the top rated, I forgot what it is, like top rated rock and roll radio podcast or radio program, but it's a great program. It's a lot of funny stuff. He talks about past memories with other rock stars and that, and I mean all different sorts of rock stars and musicians all alone, not necessarily even just rock stars. They have lots of people on there. But they talk about everything. I mean, I remember I used to, when I was in school all the time, or I'd be doing something, I would have the radio show playing through. I'd pick it up on the internet and I'd just listen to each little thing, so I wouldn't have to listen to. I wouldn't have to wait around and listen to all the music and that. I could just hear and listen to them more like a talk show than radio. But that's another thing that he's done. He's went through that. He put out he's had other books that he's done other than the Heroin Diaries. He also did his photography book, where he goes, and the photos he likes to take is kind of more of the seedy underground type of stuff. But not only that, but then he also likes to take pictures of people that maybe are dismembered, missing an arm or a leg or something, or maybe they have scars or burns, just to show that there's beauty in the world. And just because somebody was injured or has a deformity or something like that, that it doesn't make them any less than other people. So he's a really great guy, and I, even when I met him in person, I went to one of the shows and went all out, VIP, all that. So I got to meet everybody and talk to him. And it's one of those don't meet your heroes moments where I'm kind of like, okay, well, hopefully they're not a bunch of assholes and all this. And it turned out they were amazing guys. And I was sitting there talking to him, and he was very cool person to talk to. One of the other things that I say, if you're reading about that, so not only the Heroin Diaries, because of the fact that I like Nikki Sixx so much and Motley Crue, I've read every Motley Crue book that is out there. So I've read Nikki's, Vince's, Tommy's. I'm waiting for Mick Mars to do his. I actually really want him to do one, because I really want to read about his stuff. So then the other one that I suggest, if you read Heroin Diaries, the other one that you should really read is The Dirt. This is the book that covers everybody in the group. It's also one of those, if you read all the other ones, you'll kind of get some overlapping stories because they have to obviously cover things in both aspects. So another great book, another thing that really shows you what these guys have went through. So because Heroin Diaries just covers 1 year of Nikki Sixx's life, whereas Motley Crue kind of goes through the whole thing. You hear about his upbringing, his childhood, going through, all through the Motley Crue stages up until the point of the book, at least. They kept touring way after that. But to get back as to how it's helpful and why it was so inspirational, is that's the thing that you can kind of draw on things from unlikely places. Like I said, I mean, most people would read the Heroin Diaries and be like, oh yeah, it's about addiction. They probably don't think that, oh hey, that helped Ryan here with PTSD. Why? Because it shows you that you can always bring yourself back up. You just you might have to work at it. It's not going to be comfortable, but you can come back even from your lowest times. Even when you hit rock bottom and all that, you're still able to work back at it and come back out on top. And even when I read the 10th anniversary edition, I was reading all the extra stuff. It was pretty amazing to me, just the fact of how it just the feelings that it brought back up in me when I was reading this stuff, and how he talks about in the 10th anniversary edition kind of like all the fame and media and that came along with putting out the first book back in 2007, and just reading that and him talking about the amount of people that came and talked to him and that it reached out and that it helped, and the amount of people that drew kind of their strength from the fact that he was so open about it, and showing people what it's like, and that they're not the only ones going through it. It was very cool to read. And again, I mean, I've read the original Heroin Diaries when I was going through everything really bad. I mean, there were times when I would read the entire book. I'd just be doing nothing but reading it, so I'd finish it in like a day or two. And as soon as I would finish it, I would kind of feel a little bit better, and then I would just decide, you know what, I'm just going to go ahead and read it again. So I mean, I can plan. I don't even know how many times I couldn't even say. That I've read that book. So reading again the 10th anniversary edition, it was nice. I used to make sure that I read it at least once a year. It was one of my books. I have a certain amount of books that I read. They're kind of like my annual books to read, that once a year I always read them, and Heroin Diaries is always one of those. But I hadn't done that in the recent years, so it was nice to kind of pick that back up and say hello to my old friend type of thing there. But that's all I really wanted to say about that. Definitely check out Nikki Sixx, and read about the things that he's doing, how he helps people. Really a great guy, and definitely I would say check out that book. I always recommend it to everybody. It's a little different, a way of writing. There's a lot of craziness going on because you are reading his diaries. It kind of gets going in different directions, but it's definitely worth it, even with all the crazy things that are happening, and you kind of feel like what is going on here, but definitely worth it to check it out. So just wanted to get another podcast out there for you guys. I'm going to try and start shortening these up because I feel like the long ones might be obviously take a little longer to watch and might be making it a little boring for you, but wanted to get stuff going again. So I will talk to you next time. This is Ryan with Omni Lucid Media, and this is the Black Art Paladin. Take it easy.